make me pay money. I'm not buying StreamYard. StreamYard, you doofus. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Readalong, where we tell Angela why Golden Sun is actually better than Red Rising. Because
also who Sophocles is.
I learned I've read the book. I now remember who Sophocles is.
He's a mouse.
Didn't remember last time. Unforgivable.
It's a reread for a reason.
Yeah.
How could you forget Sophocles?
He's like the only pet in the book. Come on. Is that
Unless
true?
you count Severo.
I mean, Severo is quite an animal companion.
That's true. He is the best.
Alex, do you like Severo? Would you say you're a fan of Severo?
Maybe. I forgot I named myself that last time, to be honest. That's the last time I used StreamYard. It was a month ago.
I thought you just still did it.
I just thought...
I mean, it's just going to stay now forever.
Well,
I really hope you've recorded like a random World Hoppers video or something in the interim without realizing that you were Severo fangirl the entire time.
Maybe. I think the last non-Red Rising video was my name was like, "You still do YouTube?" ? That's what it was.
Well, when we have our chats and we try to figure things out, I really do feel like a Darrow Mustang Severo, with Alex being the chaotic Severo. Every time Leanna asks a reasonable question, I'm like, yeah, that sounds fine. And Alex is like, no.
Battle Royale.
Wait, so who's Darrow and who's Mustang?
I have no clue, but they're both more reasonable than Severo.
Okay.
I don't need to fight for that. We're like having a conversation, and he's just over here like,
I'm just the wild card. If you don't know this about me, and I can't be serious most of the time. So if you ask a serious question, like, what should we do for the giveaway? Like, you're probably going to get a sarcastic answer from me because I'm a child.
Well, Leanna, do you want to talk about the giveaway stuff we've decided while we wait for more people to come in? Since you wanted to.
Well, not the prompt. The prompt will become clear to us as we speak.
We don't know the prompt yet.
But yeah, so later in the show, we'll announce the winner of the Red Rising giveaway. There was some confusion about entering the Red Rising giveaway, so we want to be clearer for Golden Sun.
We couldn't have possibly made this any more clear.
Anyone can enter. It's not US only. We'll give you longer to enter because I realized after, I was like, why did we make it only a week? I was like, we have like a month until our next chat, so like, who cares? So anyway, you'll have until the next chat to enter. And yeah, just answer the prompt that we'll give you later in the comments with your Instagram handle. And if you live anywhere and want the stuff and listened for the prompt, then you can enter.
If you don't have an address, then too bad, says Leanna.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, it makes it tricky. It is a hurdle we can't quite get through. International shipping costs, we can handle that.
Yeah.
All right, so Golden Sun.
Should
we talk some spoiler-free thoughts first? Let's see how Angela thought of Golden Sun.
This sounds too reasonable. Who is this?
I
feel like
Angela,
Alex thinks that I think this is about Red Rising, because Red Rising is actually factually not as good as Golden Sun. But please carry on.
Correct. That's an objective fact.
Okay. Well, I feel like you think that I hate this book, which is not true.
Why do you hate this book?
You forgot Sophocles, therefore you hated.
Well,
this book.
I was saying, as Alex has alluded to, I assume either from one of the Discord chats or watching my videos. Yeah, it's like, well, like, so I remembered Red Rising. And I didn't remember Golden Sun. And when I was reading Golden Sun this time, I'm like, oh yeah, when I first read it, it was just a wild time. All of this stuff's happening. And then I read Morningstar and I remember Morningstar. Golden Sun is just a black hole of too much action for my brain to like keep track of.
It is an emotional overload.
And then I like the ending. The last 25% where we actually get to like breathe for a minute, like a minute, but it's more than like 10 seconds.
I'm sorry, you were breathing in the last quarter?
Well, there's like 2 chapters. Where you can breathe. So I think just for me, like, it's not middle book syndrome because it's not like a dull book. It's just I think the plot arc for me and my taste is better in Red Rising and Morningstar than Golden Sun because it's just a lot of plot. It's just a whole bunch of plot. So.
Yeah, that's why it's so good.
That's why I almost always like middle books the best because like it's not setting everything up and having to get through all of the information. And the conclusion authors will sometimes like, they like take their time winding it down and getting all like, this is the end. You're like, yes, it's the end. Okay. Whereas middle books is just pure
action.
plot. Oh, I do not.
This explains your not dislike, but ambivalence towards Sword of Kaigen, because a lot of that book is falling action.
Oh, also it was setting up a non-existent sequel.
I didn't feel that as much as everyone else because it felt complete to me. But this is not about Sword of Kaigen. I just was commenting on how most of that book is falling.
It's about you being generally wrong, so I think it's relevant.
My tastes align with popular opinion more than you, which doesn't make me right, but it means people like my videos more or don't yell at me. They yell at me less.
This is just blasphemous.
I mean, he does make a lot of bad jokes. They're not good.
Sure. Part of the charm.
He's like your annoying asshole friend of the group, but that's why he's charming.
Well, again, I know we said this last time. I don't know why he gets a pass and Wayne doesn't. They're both bad joke people.
We're not doing this again, okay?
Just letting you know, they're both the same. They're the same.
Okay, if Severo was in this book for 400 pages, then you have a point. Wayne never leaves, and that's an issue.
I think Pierce Brown does a good job managing how much Severo to use in a book, because if you overuse not just like his bad jokes, but he's just like a wild card character, and that would get not wild and very boring if he was like constantly around and having to constantly be Severo-y. But because he like walks on for 2 seconds at a time, and you're like, what even was that? And he's gone again, like periodically.
I think they do those. He's not always actually crazy in a wild card though, because he actually does make a lot of good decisions when Darrow is like the hot-headed moron sometimes. It just jumps in and Severo's like, no, literally don't do that, and he's just like, bye.
Well,
I think it's more than Severo. Go ahead.
Well, when we get into like spoilers, it's like I do think Severo helps me with one of the things that makes this book like really annoying for me and like my taste, because a lot of this book is about like Darrow being so isolated, and Severo kind of helps with that.
Yeah,
I think Severo also is mostly just that he's like really eccentric, but it's not that he's like dumb. Like he's just very strange in like what he thinks is funny or what he thinks is cool. But like that's all just like that's kind of irrelevant. That's just his personality. Like when it comes to like making decisions, being there for your friends, like being intelligent, like he's all those things. He's just an oddball the rest of the time.
For sure. Yeah, I think generally though, like for me at least, moving from Red Rising to Golden Sun the first time around, like I didn't love Red Rising honestly that much, and I talked about it last time, but when I got into Golden Sun, it immediately just felt more mature overall. It felt like it was better written, and I mean there's obvious reasons for that, as Leanna has told me multiple times about Pierce Brown.
Would you like me to tell you again?
Sure. Go for
so
it.
Pierce Brown rage wrote Red Rising for himself when he was super young.
Yeah. But no, like Golden Sun very clearly to me was just better overall. And I like that it actually took us a little bit more into space, even though it was for like the academy at the start, so it was kind of like, hey, we're doing school things again, but it's the academy instead of the institute. But the scope immediately expands. Yeah, it's been a few years. The scope immediately expands. You don't immediately feel the plot, I guess. Like stuff is happening, but there's no like the entire plot of Red Rising obviously was like Darrow getting carved and going to the institute and like infiltrating the golds. And then you time skip a couple of years and Golden Sun is just like, where are we going next? And then eventually, obviously, you get to that point, but it expands the scope. You get a lot more side characters that are more impactful now in this book. And overall, I was
gonna say, like when we read
Red
Rising, there's so many characters that are like fixtures of the series that are not in Red Rising, but they're in Golden Sun from that point onward. So they're like main characters of the series. It's just so weird to read an entire book in the series that doesn't have them in it because it's the first book and they're not at the institute.
Yeah,
that was something when I read Red Rising and we have Antonia, and I'm like, man, I really hate her, but I feel like I'm supposed to like someone in this family. And then I'm reading Golden Sun. Oh, here she is.
Yeah.
Here she is.
Yeah.
Well, I also feel like because I kind of feel like this is just a happy accident. I don't actually want to give Pierce Brown credit for this, but the kind of like directionless chaos of this book, I do feel like does handily echo Darrow's mental state, where he's like kind of adrift and like he doesn't actually he's been told like part of his mission, but now it's like he's like, I don't know what my mission is anymore. Like I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Figure out what to do with no plan.
Yeah.
So like I don't know that he purposely structured the book to be a little chaotic and where the reader feels that way, but like whether he did it on purpose or not, I think it does serve to like put you in the same kind of headspace as Darrow, because you, the reader, also are like, I don't know where this is going or what's going to happen. Darrow doesn't know where this is going or what's going to happen. What is going to happen?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, because you start out, I mean, without getting into spoilers, you have to like, you start out at the academy. It seems like they're doing another kind of like, I don't know, college, I guess. But it's like space school. And then people actually die and like things get crazy. Yeah, Starfleet Academy, exactly. But then it's like, then it turns into kind of like a blood feud for most of the book between like the Bolognas and the Augustus, and that carries it through most of the book. And then like the big plot stuff starts happening, and then it's just like big epic twist moment after moment after moment, and just like crazy nonsense happening for the rest of the book. And that's when it turns into awesome, but it is kind of all over the place too.
The first time that I read it, I definitely frequently mixed up Karnas and Kravix because those names are so similar looking. I was like, don't we hate you? No, we love you.
Yeah. No, but I do think that chaotic plotting was definitely something where like I don't necessarily mind if things pinball off walls and stuff. I just wish that like there were a few more signposts for me as the reader, like a little bit of dramatic irony of like what our goal was. Because we don't have a goal this book. Versus Red Rising, you have like, you know, the whole goal at the end is like, okay, you're supposed to win the institution and find a patron. That's the goal of Darrow in the first book. The goal of Darrow here is seed
to
chaos
not die.
and don't die. And I guess, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the whole book, he's like, the Suns didn't really tell me what to do next. It's just like, I'm here now. It's been a couple of years and no one's talked to me.
No one's contacted me.
What do I do?
I'm still here, guys. Hello.
Are we allowed to talk about spoilers yet?
Yeah, let's just do spoilers.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I don't have anything specific I want to go off my chest. I just feel like we're dancing around all of the things.
Sure. So I mean, honestly, you get a pretty quick reminder of like how much the Golds literally don't care about life in this world. When at the academy, like 830 people get murdered, and they're just like, whatever, like it's fine.
They're not.
They're just like, no, like you're literally just murdering people. You're like, yeah, but it wasn't a bunch of golds. It was like other colors. It's just like, oh my god,
so doesn't count.
Yeah. And then of course Darrow gets jumped by the Bolognas and just gets the absolute shit kicked out of him. And it's just like a bloody mess. And then Augustus is like, you embarrassed my family.
I was going to say he gets the metaphorical shit kicked out of him right after that by Augustus being like, not only did you have your ass handed to you, but now I'm cutting you off. So you're like,
you didn't win and you made me look bad.
Augustus is so frustrating, but then at the end when he does like reveal his internalized amoral view of the world, I'm like, I guess whatever, but I don't agree, but like at least you have like your own personal code. But I'm still happy that, well, I don't actually remember if it sticks or not, but I'm happy he's dead right now. Like I can't remember.
Nero is a little bit biased. It's not been 15 minutes yet, but there you go. First law.
Yeah, it's been 13 minutes and 2 seconds, and there's the first law reference. No, I mean, to that point, though, Augustus, you know, he obviously thinks that he knows what is right and what is needed, but it's also like very Thanos-esque of like, no, like I literally have to murder half the population. Like I have the magic to just make everyone's life better, but no, I need to just commit genocide. Because that's
and people will be weak if I do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's an interesting
he
idea
tries to
that.
Back up. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, especially because like I've just been reading a lot of nonfiction lately on like hierarchies and societies and economics and like what we do to make sure humanity progresses, and I'm just like, this is an interesting take. It isn't one that I've seen happen directly like this yet, so I guess kudos, but I don't love him.
No, you're not supposed to. No, he in fact did not handle that well at all, I think, because he even says it in his internal monologue. Was like, shit, I probably shouldn't have done it this way. Like, what was I thinking?
But going back to
come in here.
Going back to Nero for a second, I do think Pierce Brown does a pretty good job, right, of not making him cartoonishly evil. Because like at the end, then Darrow is like thinking about it and he's like, you know, I hate you, but like you make sense. Like I get what made you the way you are and why you think what you're doing is right. And like, you know, no one's the villain of their own story. And I think what also makes Nero hard to fully hate is because there's like a kind of a crazy fairness about it, because he actually treats his own children the exact same way as he treats everyone in the world, where he's like, you have to fit this like formula of what I believe is success for humanity, and my children are not exempt from this. And so then like he's crazy, and you definitely don't agree that that's what we need, but you're like, I mean, you are applying your beliefs across the board. You're not being a hypocrite in that sense. So like,
it kind of dehumanizes him in a way too, though, because he's so robotic in that moment that he's talking to Darrow that it's literally just like, this has to happen for society to progress as a species. And this just like, he could just murder people on a whim and like, it doesn't bother him because he's like, no, like I have the goal in mind. Like these people are literally irrelevant because we have to get to that point. So like, when I think Darrow was literally asking like, how many billions of people would you be willing to kill? It's just like,
but I think that's when also Darrow thinks to himself that like, you've lost all humanity in service of some idea of saving quote unquote humanity, and like the irony of that.
Yeah. No, I mean,
to save them, we must destroy them.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing because, you know, we get a little bit of the Sovereign in this book, but then it's a nice foil to when you learn about her mental processes and stuff. I don't remember the details of it, but her motivations, her need for power is very different from Nero's motivations. So.
Well, because he calls her out too, Darrow, because he's saying like the reason that they're different is because the Sovereign craves that power for herself and wants to rule and thinks that like she's willing to do whatever she takes, like killing her own father to get in that position of power. Because
which like Nero handily leaves out that he helped her do that. So like, okay, sir.
A little hypocritical there, Nero. Terrible. Yeah, so I mean, after the beginning, we get like a quick little recap of like Mustang went to Luna, and here's where all the Howlers have been hanging out on Pluto. And Darrow just like, I'm gonna go meet the Jackal. That seems like a good idea. And tries to team up with him.
Well, it's Victra's idea.
Well, yeah, Victra's not smart in that.
I was about to say he doesn't know he's meeting the Jackal until he's there.
Yeah,
I mean, I think he suspects, but
yeah. For sure.
Because who else would he be going to meet?
I don't know. If he suspects, he doesn't think about it the entire drive over.
I think though when he meets him, I think he does say something about how like I kind of figured this was.
He's like, I should have expected this was you. Yeah. And then of course that's when we get the Sun's reappearance when they just bomb the entire place. And
or is it the Suns? Is it really the Suns?
Yes.
It's at least an offshoot of the Suns. It's a cousin.
The zealous rebel group.
Yeah. Oh, you have I forget the girl's name, but the Darrow like knew, and he was like, "What the hell is
Harmony?"
Or you just murdered all these people. And she's like, "No, that's what we do." And he's like, "No, you're literally a terrorist. What the hell's wrong with you?" Evie.
She definitely has like that classic. What's her name? The Joker's girl, like that she thinks she's doing right. She gets like really twisted.
Yeah.
I imagine if it was animated, she'd have that type of personality.
It's because the offshoot is led by Harmony, and Harmony's a little crazy. That's why.
A little. But I do think that like again, he does a good job of like, even though we're like pro Darrow and he's like there for the terrorists, basically that's his mission, but the book does a really good job showing, I think, that like not that they're equally bad, but that like the side of the terrorists is not great. Like they're like kind of incoherent, kind of messed up. What they do is also very questionable, and like Darrow has to be like, I mean, the Golds, I am ultimately against having society structured like this, but like is this the way?
Yeah, it's not very productive, right? Like I think the idea is like, okay, if this much damage and loss leads to something productive, maybe that's worth balancing. But so far, it's just going to cause problems and hurt more people, and not cause a new world order.
He has that conversation with them too, because he's like, blowing shit up at random isn't like a path forward. You're just gonna piss them off. Like it's not how you overthrow a government or like a governing body that just rules through power and slavery. Like you can't just blow up random buildings and kill a bunch of people because it's not.
But even like the real Suns, because like that's Harmony, like being psycho. Yeah. But even the real Suns' plans aren't always like, well, these are the good guys, so clearly their plans are right. Like I mean, Darrow is like, no, I don't think I should do that, and I won't do that.
Darrow kind of disagrees with everybody from like every angle.
Yep.
But I feel like that's a pretty common trope though in like revolution style stories where you do finally like you see the resistance has a point of like they have a very valid reason to overthrow the like crazy military governance, and then they go to extreme lengths to do that, to the point where like they're being arguably worse than the rulers. And then when they do finally overthrow them, they just turn into like a worse version of them. Like that happens in The Last of Us. That happens in so many things where it's like you do finally overthrow them, but the depths that you go to get to that goal, and then you get there and you're like, shit, what do we do now? And then
It's also like if your grand plan only had like you'd only planned up to like the overthrow point, but you hadn't planned for what you would do to replace it. And if that wasn't part of your plan, then it's always going to fail.
No, I mean, I also
think
foreshadowing.
Well, I think Darrow's also so intersectional that like a lot of people are looking at it through one-sided lenses, and like he's so intersectional. He's like, well, you thought this, but like you're actually wrong here because you haven't even considered this part, which is a thing he had experience with the friendships he's built. And I think he's an interesting character. I don't dislike Darrow, even if he is still very, very Gary Stu. I was thinking this earlier. This is a non sequitur. Do Reds get taught how to read? Are Reds literate? And when did Darrow learn how to read?
Well, if he learned how to read, it was when he was getting taught everything.
Yeah. After his carving, probably.
Okay. I was just curious because I was just like, he's a very intellectual, and I understand that a lot of it was like the test is a different paradigm. He's doing weird logic puzzles, but I also,
it's not just the puzzles,
like not quick.
When they talked about him getting like not just carved, but then like mentally turned into a gold, they talked about all the history lessons, literature lessons, like etiquette lessons. Like he was like Matrix style downloading an entire history of the gold people. So that's why he's always able to like quote histories and quote like.
It does seem like he learned an awful lot way too quickly. It's just kind of like,
well, I was just curious about like this.
Very special.
I was thinking because the Reds are like they're the family clan or whatever we talk about. It's like they obviously have stories, but I assume they were more of an oral storytelling people, right? Like,
yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, most of the golds obviously have access to the shit that the Reds don't. So Darrow just.
I also don't even know how important books are in this world. People aren't sitting around reading books very often. So for all I know,
but I think they're able to read text that's on like the hollow screens, like when there's broadcasts.
Darrow's just a speed reader. He came out up to the surface and started reading 100 books a month, and everybody else was reading like 12 books a year, you know?
Like I said, this is just
I think they talk about I think they talk about all the golds basically having information kind of Matrix style uploaded to their brains, and how Roke stands out because Roke like learned it the manual way, where he was actually reading the books while in gardens with tutors, learning it the old fashioned way.
Good old Roke.
I don't like Roke. I never like Roke. I don't know if I'm going to like Roke again, but I've never enjoyed his presence.
Fuck Roke.
Don't enjoy the man. He's so pretentious. Like, ignoring what he actually does at the end of the book, he is so freaking pretentious.
So they do get aged up a little bit, right?
Just 2 years.
They're like.
So I mean, it hasn't been a long
20s.
time.
They're a whole like 21.
Old enough to drink.
Stuff that they're put in charge of though is like they're not really in charge of much, because there's definitely still like much higher tiers of like leadership that's above them.
I'm actually
I feel like them being in charge of stuff. Them being in charge of stuff in this book is accidental. Like in the moment they happen to be placed in a position to do this, because like Darrow is like still in school and he's like trying to navigate his way out of this, and it's just because like he's chaotic and violent, and people are like, I guess I'm following him because he just, like proving yourself on the battlefield kind of thing. He's not actually a general. He's not actually like been put in a position of power.
I think you could do drill stuff without being able to read. There's a lot of trade skills that people do with varying level of literacy.
They're literally bred to just go into a mine and drill. That's all they do.
You don't need to know how to read to drive a car. You need to know how to read to pass your temps test or get a driver's license, but not to actually drive the car.
So. Yeah.
But Augustus does have a bunch of people at his table. Darrow is just one of like many, and they all like shush him and call him young and stupid because he's just a boy. But then like, because Darrow comes up with like the great ideas, they're like, damn it, he had a good idea.
Then he's just sitting up there like, you stupid child.
Well, because like we have two things happening and they only know about one. Like they only know about the Civil War, and we know there's also the Revolution. And I think for both of those things, those are usually historically spearheaded by young blood that are tired of status quo. So I'm like cool with them being this young, because I think based off the history, he's basing, this inspiration.
Well, also because like, as we see, like someone who's more established, like Lorna Arcus, is like, I have my family to protect, my holdings to protect. Like I I have built too much that I would want to protect and therefore maintain status quo. Whereas someone that doesn't have that, that's either too young to have developed that or is poor and has nothing, is going to be like, well, I don't have anything to lose, so like I'm going to go for it. And it's like the longer you've been around, the less likely you are to like take that kind of like extreme violent action.
Yeah, I feel bad for Lauren.
I feel that a lot. Yeah.
I mean, even though when Lauren meets his end, though, Darrow's just like, he didn't really deserve to have a peaceful life, though. He was kind of a shithead, too.
It's like, you're my friend, because you are, but you also are, like, a war, like, what was... Like, he killed a shit ton of people. Like...
Yeah. It's because they're the main characters, man.
It's also because, like, that's how plots work. Like, that's how Star Wars is. They're very young in Star Wars, and then they just end up doing things.
I mean, we could look at my my favorite sci-fi book. This is a joke, by the way. Ender's Game, where they hire literal 2-year-olds to like run the military because they're super smart.
I read Red Rising after reading Dune and Ender's Game and the Prince of Nothing trilogy. And I was like, oh, Darrow's just like a lot like these other types of just like really smart, chosen one characters. It was like such a mold.
I mean, I play a lot of JRPGs. Every main character is like 16 and you're saving the fucking planet.
I was going to say, Darrow is actually an old man compared to all the examples you just gave.
But it was just kind of funny, especially because Ender's Game is very much like the early Darrow in Red Rising, where it's like, oh, I'm just learning, and I'm really fast and really smart, and everyone listens to my ideas because obviously I'm the genius, which doesn't really make sense. But.
Yeah, I mean...
But I was going to say this earlier, like when I was saying how like they don't just make the sons be the good guys and the society be the bad guys, that the sons do a lot of questionable things. But also I like that Darrow isn't always wrong or always right. Like there's a lot of times when he's like, okay, he did have a great idea and people should have listened to him. And other times when you're like, nope,
he's wrong.
Shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Or like he's not even always wrong. Like he just doesn't think far enough ahead. So like he thinks in the immediate, like if I get this step done, then I'm going to win. And then he completes that step successfully and he's like, oh shit, I didn't think about the next
He's
5
very
steps.
Tactical. He's not very long-term strategic. Darrow and I are very similar in our board game playing skills. I'm not very good at chess, but I'm very good at board games like the Red Rising card game, where it's like, oh, everything changes. The paradigm shifts every 2 seconds and you have to adjust.
Paradigm shift.
So like I saw a negative review saying that like it doesn't count that Darrow is wrong because even when he's wrong, he's like kind of wrong that has fireworks going off and he's still like basically fine. And I was like, I mean, I kind of get what they mean by that, but it's more just that like the fact that someone becomes a charismatic leader that like, you know, skyrockets to the top is because they're able to adjust to circumstances and like think on their feet. So like, like it would be weird if Darrow was a successful leader and was not able to think on his feet. You'd be like, seriously, why is he leading in this rebellion? Yeah. He's a moron. But because he does demonstrate, he's like, even when he fucks up massively, he's like, I got to figure a way out of this. This did not go as I planned or as I thought. I did not plan for this at all. And so then like sometimes someone else saves him and sometimes he thinks his way out of it. But like, it's his ability to do that makes him qualified to lead people.
And he's also become such a legend in his own right. And people love that stuff. I think it really shows the emphasis on like how stories can motivate something.
Even Lysander.
Stop it. But yeah,
I love how Lysander's like, that's Darrow. Wow, I watched all of your episodes of the Institute.
I have a poster on my wall. Yeah, like I said,
even when he gets captured, he's kind of like, I've been captured by my heroes, though. So
I know how to do
cool.
Fangirling. Every sci-fi fantasy adventure is going to find a reason to sword fight, and that's just the way it is. It's just going to happen.
I was so excited because one thing I did remember on my reread is like, oh yeah, here's the reviewer where he's been studying with Lauren and he's going to be so good at this fight scene and no one's ready. And I'm just, that's the type of melodrama I live for. And like,
I was going to say, I live for the moment where he like pretends to be bad at fighting and then like straightens up, is not even breathing heavy and is like, oh, did you think I came here to suck? No, I came here to kill you.
So are we going straight to the dinner scene? Because that's like one of the best scenes in the book. Should we talk about that?
The duel with Cassius, that scene?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's at the dinner. And he's just like, all right, I'm going to be super dramatic, and I'm just going to stand on this table and start kicking shit off and talking shit.
Yeah, that's really funny.
It's so good.
It's just like their society is so bored that this type of shit is what they'll put
Right?
up with. Like this would never go down in like my average middle class household. Someone's standing on that table, like we're shoving them off. They're in the backyard.
Right?
They're not
So
invited
like,
anymore.
get from the table. What are you doing, idiot? They're all just sitting there, just like, let's see where this goes.
At the popcorn.
It's so good.
Well, he talks about that too, like in general, about like how quickly this all escalated after that and how quickly people decided to participate in revolution. It's like these golds are all bred on war. They're all bred on this. And there's been no one to fight for years. They're like hungry for it. And they're like, war? Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, that's funny too. There's like, he went to that dinner because he was supposed to kill everybody. Like he was supposed to basically be a suicide bomber.
Yeah, because Harmony tells him that Io was pregnant, and that re-triggered even more passion, even though he felt already pretty passionate. That is one thing. I thought that was kind of a lazy re-motivation that we didn't need, and also falls into, wait, we're fridging again. And then we have a fridge later with Fitchner, and I'm like, oh my God, you have other things to do, Pierce. I know you do.
All the fridging.
If it hadn't been set up in Red Rising, it would bother me more. But like they made a big deal in Red Rising of her like not saying her last words to Darrow and specifically saying them to her sister. So I was like, it's not like he last minute was like, how can I make this worse? Like he clearly had her like had that in mind when he wrote Red Rising.
That's tough.
Sure, but I just think that like it Darrow was already invested. Darrow wasn't losing motivation or momentum. And so I just think it makes it cheap that Darrow needed this extra stuff to suddenly become a terrorist. And then he even backs down. It's not even like...
I mean, yeah, it doesn't. But I mean,
like, it's like, it's just weird. I didn't enjoy that part.
But I think part of what Golden Sun is, the whole book, is him, like, unmythicizing Io. Because, like...
with his mom, too,
Like, yeah, when he, like, thinks about... Or even just when he returns to the mines and is like, would I even, like her if I met her now? Would I look at her with the same eyes? Maybe it's a good thing she's not here because, like, she wouldn't be the girl the way that I remembered her, because that Io isn't actually like real. This is just an idealized version of her. And like the whole thing with the baby too, it's like, yeah, she was like, because we were told that, and then later when his mom is like, she's selfish and like she like I didn't like her, and you're like, yeah, like it's like to martyr yourself is already like kind of a selfish thing to do depending on your perspective, and then to martyr yourself when you are also pregnant is like that's a lot for her to have like done, and you can Darrow feels like rightly betrayed by that.
Yeah. I think I was coming around to it, but then I forgot about... I remembered Fitchner was the Ares. I remember that, and it does actually, Matt, if you ever reread Red Rising, he actually acts like Ares in Red Rising. Like, you see it the entire time.
It's so fun reading Red Rising.
It's so fun reading Red Rising and realizing Fitchner is Ares. But I'm just like, there are so many reasons for him to want to become Ares, and one of them is Severo. But like the fact that it's because they came to kill his wife, I'm just like, that was the actual inciting incident. Not that he wants a world where his son could be free, and that wasn't enough. It was, I don't know. I just think that Pierce, at the time he wrote this, was running out of creative motivation for characters when there are so many.
Yeah.
I think with that, he probably just wanted a paralleling where like Fitchner and Darrow like have a similar story that makes them feel like that they would bond over having a similar experience.
Yeah.
And that's when also I like that Darrow thinks to himself that perhaps Severo is more important to this revolution than Darrow is, because Severo is truly a child of two worlds.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love Severo, and I think that's the thing where it's just like, obviously, like you're saying, there is that mini parallel, but they don't even get to form much of a bond in this book. I just think that Severo could have been enough. The fact that Severo would have always been othered in this society because he's not genetically the same, and the fact that his relationship had to go through all those hoops. Like, there are so many reasons there to become Ares from just that.
Yeah.
I think there is, though, like, the argument, so, like, what I was saying before about, like, young people being the ones that are doing a revolution is because they have less to lose. So there's something to the fact that, like, he wouldn't risk his wife and, like, his marriage and his life by going and being a terrorist. While he has her, he's going to protect what he has. But when he's lost her, now he has, like, nothing to lose. I mean, he still has Severo, obviously, but, like, Severo is gold and can pass for gold. So, like, he can now just go be a terrorist because, like, you've already taken the thing that I was trying to protect.
Readalong,
and now I can just
be
attack.
A terrorist now.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a reason why people have been using fridging for years. I just think it gets the point across, but I think it's also just like the least creative option.
Sure.
Well, and I also think that like, because I mean, yeah, there's like no thing that I'll be like, never do this in your book. It's always like, case dependent. So like for fridging, I think this like almost it doesn't really bother me at all because like I feel like there's really good reasons for it to be there. And like the narrative of these both of these is that like the society created its downfall. Because like if the society hadn't killed Io, if the society hadn't killed Fritschner's wife, they created their own demise by like doing that. So like the way that they've created the monster that will take them down.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's not like a bad thing to do. It's just also, I forgot that so many fridges were dropped in this series. Does that make sense? Because I didn't even notice them at all in my first read because it's so used.
I'm just picturing like Looney Tunes.
No, like literally though, right? Like it's like you have the first fridge in the first book and then there's two and this is like, man, he used this.
Are you really considering Fitchner's death of fridging though? Because he's been a character. Like, I get it that it's for motivation, but like Fitchner getting killed in this book.
No, but Fitchner being killed. Fitchner's wife being killed.
Oh, yeah, but she's like not even part of the book. It was
but
just
that's why he becomes the son of Ares. Yeah, like everyone's joining this revolution because they're losing wives.
Because their wives are getting murdered. Everyone's wife is dead, and that's why they're evil.
Well, I mean, Nero is also a monster.
Nero's wife is dead, and that's why he's Thanos.
I'm just saying, like, it's a pattern, and I feel like it's more complex than that, but it's fine.
It's not completely unfair.
It's just a Disney movie. No one can have a living mother. Or at least no one can have two living parents because Darrow has a mother but no father.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think that's probably right too. It's like I grew up on so many stories where you do just always lose people or parents, and that is like an inciting factor. And it wasn't until like I was in the internet and people start talking about this and being frustrated. I'm like, oh, I guess I can see your point because they are just dropping fridges.
It's not even,
it doesn't bother me.
It's such a trope. It's in everything. Like I just started playing a game earlier. Like I just got around to Kingdom Come Deliverance, and literally the like motivation for part of your character is literally both your parents get murdered in front of you. It's just like, why? Like parents just have it rough, man.
Dude, as a kid, when you make your own imaginary stories where you're the hero, I was like, man, but I have two parents and I have a sibling. I need to somehow kill these people off in my own personal story, like, and go on my own quest. Like, I don't know. It was so prevalent.
Everyone must.
But I also just think like because there's definitely books where I'm like, this is egregiously fridging, and other times where I'm like, I mean, are you never allowed to explore a character grieving like the loss of a loved one? Because it's like at a certain point there's some reviewers, no, I'm not saying you're doing this, there's some reviewers that like anytime a character loses a loved one they're like fridging, and it's like you're allowed to explore grief over loss. Like that's a thing that people go through that you can have.
I think you're right, and I think if it was only Darrow I would probably never even think about bringing it up again, because like you said, it was exploring this whole how do you be affected by a martyr who takes away all of your agency and does this big thing that pushes you into a larger than life situation that is interesting. But then again, I'm having everyone join the Son of Ares because they have lost important women in their life.
A meteor fridged the entire existence of dinosaurs.
So I don't know. It's not a big deal, though. It's not why I rate this book the way I do. That's more for all the plot. There's so much plot. And I want the TV show of this so freaking bad. Can you imagine how bingeable this book would be as a show?
Unless Amazon does it.
I mean,
if Amazon does it, it won't get canceled. It won't be very good, but it won't be canceled.
At that point, I'd rather get canceled.
Yeah, right.
No, I think I'd want animated HBO, but I don't even know if HBO does animated.
Well,
I like HBO storytelling.
Or no, Velma.
I don't think this would need to be animated, honestly. You could,
unless it was done like Arcane. If it was done the style of Arcane, maybe.
If it was done the style of Arcane, I'd be cool. I think I'm more lean animated just because like I just feel like live action, they'll never produce it. We don't do stuff like Battlestar Galactica anymore. Like
Expanse.
I mean, you got the Expanse.
Well, that was Amazon. I thought we didn't want Amazon.
It was Sci-Fi, and then Amazon bought it.
And HBO did Raised by Wolves.
True.
Yeah, but I mean, HBO is my favorite team of writers on a streaming thing. Although I have realized I just like broadcast TV writers more these days because I am still disappointed by Shadow and Bone season 2. So I'm still annoyed.
Yeah, I'm pretty mad about it.
I'm not even mad about it because of a book situation. I feel so bad for book fans. I'm over here just like, that was objectively not very good storytelling.
Objectively.
I know, I'm using Leanna's vocabulary today.
Truth be told, let's get back to the dinner scene.
There were several times that Darrow said truth be told, and I was like,
Yep. My eye started twitching. I was just like, not again.
Cannot.
So I know one of the criticisms of the series is that you're in first person, but you still get a lot of like twists and turns that Darrow should know. So like,
not knowing that Darrow trained with Lorne.
That's exactly what I was about to bring up. Like, shouldn't we know that? Like, I love that scene. I love it that he's just like, oh no, I'm a sloppy drunk. I suck at fighting. Just kidding. I've been training for this.
I like that he doesn't actually lie to us though, because if you look at all it's kind of like watching Red Rising happen when you know Fitchner is Aries and you're like, it fits that he's Aries. So like all the conversations where they mention dueling and razors around Darrow before the duel with Cassius, other people make fun of Darrow and they're like saying that he doesn't know how to fight, and he's just like no comment. So like the whole time, like it's not that he's like saying he doesn't know how to fight. He's just saying nothing. And if you know that he does know, then I can imagine being Darrow and being like,
and I guess Darrow internally isn't like super prideful, so he doesn't like in his head do like internal banter of like, oh, if they only knew. Like he doesn't do that. And he's never really like that ever. I don't know.
Oh, that's a fair point. I mean, it didn't bother me. I love that moment. I think it's cool. So
it's because like I don't care what it took for us to get that scene. I love that thing of like when you think a character's getting beaten down in like any kind of duel, magic fight, whatever it is, and then they like turn around, they're like, actually, I'm fine. God.
Yeah, I'm actually always cool with that as long as the reveal is awesome. So Sarah J. Maas tries to do this a lot with her characters, and it's never actually awesome. And I'm like, if you're going to do it, it has to hit. And if it hits, I don't even care. We're reading a fantasy fiction sci-fi thing. Like, I don't care. Like
literally reading that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say reading the duel with him and Cassius, and he has that moment, the switch, where he's like gonna reveal that he actually knows what he's doing. Like when you're reading that, at least for me, I'm sitting there like, oh, like I'm like so like let's go, so pumped.
That's why I didn't care. But then it gets even better too, because then he starts doing the Viper thing where he's just like talking shit and like circling him, and then the Sovereign's
like he takes Cassius down fast after that. He's like, oh, I'm so weak, I can't fight. He's like, actually, and he's like, wham, bam, 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 and Cassius is like completely taken down, like immediately.
And then the Sovereign's just like, we'll change. We're not to the death anymore. And everyone's like, no, you can't change the rules. And then Darrow's like, I need my justice. And he just like leaps over and like cuts off his arm.
Yeah.
Fucking awesome. And then
I love how like expendable limbs are in this world.
How they what?
Limbs are so expendable because they can just like they have such good medicine. They just get new stuff.
Except who's like, I like it better without. Thank you very much.
Oh, speaking of limbs, though, for the first half of this book, Darrow is obsessed with hands again, and I was noticing it, and I was being really annoyed. I'm like, sir, if you keep talking about your freaking hands, I'm over it. But he stopped near the second half, so I got over it. But he's really obsessed with hands and memories. And like how it identifies him as a person, which I think actually makes sense.
He told Cassius he's going to catch these hands. That's what he said.
He's just really into. I almost went Control F in the book to see how many times hands was written. Like I was getting kind of annoyed. So.
I did not notice that at all.
I think it was just because we were talking in the last book about hands and how like these actually aren't red hands.
Talking about.
Fair enough. I'll take it. But like we were talking about how could he actually do this? These aren't biologically his bones and his neurons anymore. Like this is all different.
All up in here. His metaphorical hands and his brain.
Mental hands.
His mental hands. Oh man, so good. But yeah, then of course we get freaking Darrow trapping Lorne and being like, "Hey, you're on my team now," and Lorne's just like, dude, I want nothing to do with this. And I was just like, you're with him? He's like, no, I'm not part of this at all. He's just like, you're with me now. He's like, what the fuck? He's like, no, I don't want to be part of this.
And I was just like, you're either with me or with him.
But also like the talent of Pierce Brown to make me sad at Tactus's death. I'm like, if you told me in Red Rising that I would be sad to see Tactus die, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. But I'm always so sad at Tactus's death. Yeah. And then later when Lorne is like, you're right, I shouldn't have killed him. And you're like,
because the way that it plays is like, he's terrible. And Darrow finally talks him down and he drops his sword and just like hugs and cries. And then Lorne's just like, and then it's just like,
And then we learn about the violin.
Mm-hmm.
Which even before we learn about the violin, even like earlier in the book, when he's like, I think Roke is telling him about like, do you know how he grew up? Do you know what his brothers are like? What his parents are like? Mm-hmm. And like, it's not, I mean, personally to me, other people might disagree. It's not written in a way where it feels to me like I'm being told, oh, it's fine actually that he's like this because he has a sad backstory. But like that having a sad backstory explains it. It doesn't justify it. It doesn't excuse it. But like now he makes sense, like why he is the way that he is, and he's still awful. But like, yeah,
I agree.
And it could have been a different way.
Yeah, and Darrow talks to Lauren, and he's like, and Lauren said, you know, people don't change or whatever, and he's like, well, you never gave him the chance to like understand that he could be a good person. So,
but I think Darrow thinks about that.
Stabbed him 8 times.
I think Darrow thinks about that a lot in this book about like who like that we are all a product of our circumstance, nature versus nurture, and like it's predominantly nurture, you know. And he's like, if Cassius and I had been switched, I think he would be a better man than I am, and I would be a worse one than he is. Like I am who I am because of like the people around me and the experiences that I've had. So then like Tactus is like the other side of that, where he's like
Tactus is a product. When I saw this comment came up, I was like, oh, Matt, savage.
I mean, he did deserve to die, to be fair, but
it's tragic.
Yeah.
Because like everything about Tactus is tragic, because like the piece of shit that he turned out to be didn't have to be that way, and him dying that way, it didn't have to be that way, and it's just like the futility, the waste of it all. You're like, like you're a talented individual that like you could have been so much better and so much more, and it's just so sad to see that.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like that's a lot of the series though. Like that's I mean, that's how the society is built. It's like it's just a massive waste of life and potential because they just choose to do it that way. And they literally don't have to.
Nero at the end is like, do I know that blues could run the ship? Yes. Do I know oranges could do? Yes, I know everyone can do all these things. But that's not the point, Darrow.
Yeah. He's like,
but it's also kind of great because like it's so easy to write a villain that's just like, well, I'm better than everyone. They could never even dream of doing what we do, you know. But instead, Nero is like, oh no, I absolutely know they can do all that. Like I'm not an idiot. Like I don't think that they
He's like,
I'm purposely keeping them down because I know they can.
Yeah, and also to Christy's kind of point, I think that was the thing where we talk about how stressful the latter quarter third is, but the latter quarter third is when we have the most on-page interactions that aren't like quick montage scenes or quick cut scenes to the next action. That's when we get a little bit of time where we actually see Mustang and Darrow get to talk, and we have the Severo, Roke, and Darrow. Like, there's so many scenes at the end of the book that I got to like actually sit in for a second, and that's like why the first half is harder for me, because we are just moving at such a clip. Yeah, we don't have time for There's not even a chance for miscommunication. There's just no communication. We're just going.
There's time to miscommunicate. There's time to miscommunicate with Roke.
Well, yeah, Darrow's so dumb sometimes. He's just such a dumb sometimes. I'm just like, sir.
Like the second half of the book, I mean, you get the one-on-one with Mustang and Darrow. You get Ragnar and Darrow. You get Ragnar, Darrow, and Mustang. You get Roke and Darrow. We
get Darrow and his mom. We get Darrow and Nero. We get so many great conversations.
All these one-on-one conversations that are just like great character moments for sure.
Yeah. So I really like that. Oh man! It also, I do think it's actually dumb that Darrow didn't tell Roke that the Sovereign was on Mars. He's the head of your fleet. He should know.
Yeah.
like sure, you don't want to tell too many people, but I think even the Jackal knew. Like I don't understand.
Well, he knows everything.
When I got to that scene, I was just like, it was another of like, oh, Darrow, you're so dumb. But not just like, I was like, okay, fine. Maybe you thought it was a security risk to tell Roke because he's been kind of like not close to you recently. So you're like, after Tactus, betraying you, you're like, I've learned my lesson. I'm not trusting anybody. So fine. But then when you've kept Roke out of the loop, and when Roke tells you that the Sovereign is there, don't say, I know. You should have been like, oh, great news. That's wonderful. Thanks for telling me, buddy.
Thanks, idiot.
Why would you be like, yeah, duh?
Yeah, that was really flub, especially because he like knew that he was messing up this relationship he had with this man. Like, ugh.
Yeah. So he didn't even need to tell Roke. He needed to have keep pretending you don't know this, like you've been pretending. Keep it up.
Like you've been lying for books now. What is another lie?
For sure.
I'm blanking on what the duel is between Mustang and Darrow.
I was gonna say, would we call that a duel? It's more just a confrontation.
When does it happen in the book again? They yell out at each other.
After Mustang watches the carving and then she stops Darrow and is like, hey.
Oh, okay, that confrontation in the hallway and Ragnar shows up. Okay, yeah, I didn't think of it as a duel, but I...
Before we even get there, though, I like the first moment between Mustang and Darrow when she's like begging him to stop stonewalling her and just like open up and just like be himself around her. He's just
Got the cook who's like trying to make them an entire feast and is like, that's not enough. She's like, I don't okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's like, I just wanted eggs and bacon, but here we are. That was another.
And he sees Darrow. He sees Darrow, and he's like, "There's a second one. I've not made enough. Oh god, there's go make more food." It's so funny.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Mustang's response because, as much as I kind of wanted everyone to like.
It's so. This is the part of what I was talking about when she's like trying to get him to open up. And she grabs like dueling swords or like training swords. It's just like whipping the shit out of him. He keeps like trying to reach for one and she keeps like slapping it and trying to get him to like answer questions truthfully. Yeah. And he's trying to dodge it and not be like, I'm a red, I'm sorry.
I thought of that as a duel.
Yeah.
It's a duel of the mind.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
does Mustang tell Darrow not to trust her brother every second she has?
I was literally, one of my notes in all caps was just like, Mustang has baked Darrow so many times.
But I mean, like, Darrow doesn't have too many moments of hubris, but his blind spot at thinking he can manipulate those around him is one of them. So.
Or also that he thinks like, if I just trust them, then they'll see the light and then they'll want to be good. And you're like, sometimes. But like not all that, like not all the time.
There's a lot of that. Like if gold can't change, then what's this all for? It's like, yeah, but not that one. Like
that not every single gold.
Like we even get that reveal at the end where the Jackal's the reason the blood feud even started. He's like, oh yeah, I paid him to sleep with him so that he'd do the duel. Yeah. It's like, oh my god, you were like 10.
Well, I mean, he's not the reason it started because it started with the parents when like Nero sent the head of his wife. Like it started before then, but Adrius fed it some more fuel.
I guess the current inciting incidences were all triggered. The domino was with him for our current range of the son was killed by a Bellanova, and then like Julius was killed by, the whole thing.
Yeah, this whole scene, yeah. Which Roke was real mad at Darrow about. He's like, "Why are you letting her go?" He's like, "Dude, you're not the main character. I have a plan up here. Like, you just don't know it yet."
But again, like, what would it have hurt to tell him?
Like that he's tracking her to fight. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like, I don't think I ever got a satisfying answer for why Darrow was keeping him at arm's length, because he's nothing like Tactus. There is that thing, but he's nothing like Tactus. He keeps the Jackal in the loop and thinks he can trust the Jackal or control the Jackal. I'm like, Roke is way easier.
I think it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be the domino effect of like originally he like roofied him so he wouldn't get exploded, and then after that like it's really awkward because he's like, why did you roofie me? And there's just like not time to like have that conversation, and so it's just like constantly more and more awkward because they haven't fixed that initial thing, and so that thing just festers because they never fixed that thing.
Yeah, it's just
also side note, we get the big lovable Ragnar and some screen time in this book.
Which also, I mean, reading it like when Severo straight up tells Ragnar that he's a red, I'm just like, that is a bold risk right there. Like for some random stained guy who's sitting in a freezer, you're like, here's my deepest, darkest secret. You're like, why?
It's so random when he decides to trust people.
Too. It's not even just the fact that he tells him everything about himself. He's just like, golds are not gods. Like your entire existence is a lie. You're free, Dobby. Like, no more house elf duties. Make your own decisions. I've just completely broken your whole brain and your like perception of reality.
And I'm handing you my fate by giving you my secret.
Yeah.
But he does like explain at the end of the chapter, like if this is going to be won, it can't be won by Reds alone. Like they do need some firepower. And I guess in his head, he doesn't tell this to us in detail. He's like, we need
you met this guy yesterday. Like, have we
Darrow
decided this is where it starts?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's like sometimes he makes decisions and I'm like, I guess I see it. And other times he makes decisions like you're making your life harder than it needs to be, but whatever, go ahead.
He also, obviously this pays off later when we learn more about the Obsidians, but like the fact that gold created, because obviously, we know that they've kind of created this whole society and they put people into roles, but like the Obsidians, they think that the golds are gods because they literally genocided 3/4 of their population. And then purposefully give them like famine and disease and carve giant sea monsters to put in the ocean around them and fucking dragons that live in the mountains. To like, they put them in this horrible place so they look at them as gods and they come and save them and then they fight for them. It's just like, it's so fucked up.
I wanted to play the video game where I'm an obsidian living in their world. I actually thought that'd be really fun while I was reading this, because I just finished like Horizon Zero Dawn, and I'm like, man, I want to fight all these big monsters and like not know anything about a world.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It could be. It makes for.
I mean, I think it is because you feel uncomfortable the whole time, and you know there's going to be a consequence, and then the consequence is what Roke does at the end, which is heavy and like, it could have been avoided.
Yeah, I mean, you're also reminded by Nero, because he's like, you literally did you broke the law. You gave a razor to an obsidian, and he's just like, yeah. I mean, he's my boy. He needed a sword.
Which like, I feel like the Darrow is like, you break the law. But Darrow's like, you break the law all the time because you do what needs to be done. Like, that's what I was doing. And Nero's like, oh no, but we don't empower the low colors. Yeah. No, my good man, we don't do that.
Even the golds are like, before Ragnar and Darrow kill a bunch of them, they're just like, you gave him a razor? It's just like, yeah, I'm literally gonna kill you with it.
Was it Thistle who got really mad at it? I can't remember.
He was like, put it down.
It's like, you put that down right now. Like,
even though Darrow gave it to him.
Yeah. And then whoever the golds that they fight, like call him a dog or whatever, he's like beg for mercy. He's like, I'm a man, damn it. They're just like, no, you're a dog. He's just like, all right.
No, I like Ragnar. I mean, like, so that's another thing where it's like, we were talking about things that could be lazy or should not work. It's like, yeah, do I think Darrow should have trusted him so quickly? No. But I love that suddenly he has Severo and Ragnar in his corner, and he has at least two people that like know
Ragnar is such a puppy dog outside of his door, and he's like, I told you to go sleep, and he's like, no, I sleep with my eyes open.
It's so good too that this entire civilization of just like bred like warriors that are 10 feet tall and insane are just Vikings, and his name is Ragnar. Like, I just love everything about the Obsidians. It's so
just but he's like so comically large. Like the first time Darrow sees him, when he's just like fighting in what becomes the Pax, and he's just like, that is the stuff of nightmares right there. But he's just like a big teddy bear around Darrow, and he's like, I serve you. You don't want me?
Yeah. He's like on the other side of the wall, and he's just like, all right, let's shake on it. Yeah. It's like, you spit in my face, Darrow. He's just like, no.
I like imagine that scene as like Ragnar being like, oh, there's like a new person in town. I really don't want to go to wherever this is. I want to make them my friend, and they're doing a lot of shit. So here we go. This is my god, picking this one.
But speaking of lovable giants, the Telemanuses. I love them so much.
They are the Pokemon of the world.
Well, I also love that we get like a glimpse of like, because we know a little bit from Red Rising that Mustang knew them, and then seeing how friendly she is with Kravix and Daxo is just, after the coldness of her actual family, it's so nice to see that she kind of has a family unit. It's just not her blood. The way that they like, the Kravix is so fatherly to her, and Daxo is like an older brother. It's just so nice to see.
So heartwarming in this world.
And also the way
psychopaths.
that they like, it's a little bit like Severo, where it's like it benefits them to have people underestimate them. Not obviously their size, because they're like huge monstrous like
dumb.
men.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the way that Kravix like is just like so weird and like absent-minded and just says weird stuff. But then like you realize that he actually knows exactly what's going on.
No, I like them.
Of course,
Soft,
they're
please.
awesome.
Investigate. He's like, is there jelly beans in your pockets? And Darrow's like, inexplicably, there are jelly beans in my pockets. And Daxo's like, gotcha.
Magic.
How excessive is it that Daxo has golden angels like on his skull permanently? Like,
you know, not being a visual reader, didn't know that till just now, but it is excessive.
He talks about them shining and sparkling all the time, every time Daxo
when there are descriptive words that describe objects, my eyes have learned to glaze because they mean nothing to my brain.
I do that with some of the stuff, but like angels on the head is just so out there that I'm definitely picturing that.
There's a lot of people in this story that are pretty extra, if you think about it.
Kravax o Telemanus. Well, Pax had to learn it somewhere.
It's so good, though.
I am so glad that Darrow, speaking of like eccentric, well, I don't know if she's actually the most eccentric, but I really like Vitra. And I really like that Darrow's like, no, we're trusting her. I'm like, thank you. Trust somebody, anybody. I don't even know.
That's why, but that's also why it's a good example of like when Darrow isn't always right and he isn't always wrong. There's so many people that other people tell him not to trust, like Adrius. But like they also tell him over and over and over again not to trust Victra, but it pays off to trust Victra.
That's because they don't trust the
sometimes
Julii
he's
as
right.
a whole. Everyone's like, the Julii just want money, and you can't trust anything. But that's pretty true for the rest of them, just not Victra.
Which I don't know why, and I can't remember when I'll learn more about her. But like, I like her.
Too bad she died at the end of Golden Sun. Got shot in the spine.
I thought it was her legs. Either way, she was crawling on the floor.
I was about to say she was crawling. I don't confirm deaths unless we have big moments. Like I'm not even like
Angela. You've read the entire series.
Fitchner is actually dead. Okay, here's where I'm at.
No one's dead unless
head is in a box.
You see the body.
So
I think head in a box is pretty good confirmation.
I know. I think he probably is dead, but like I question myself a lot with these things where we can just put bodies together. Like, I don't know. I really don't remember anything that happens in Morningstar other than the very end. Just like I only remembered the very end of Golden Sun. It's not very helpful.
Like blah 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 end.
Well, this whole series is just so driving. You just want to get to a landing place, and there aren't many pit stops. You're just like stress so much.
I won't say like specifics, but I'm 99% sure this was my first time rereading Golden Sun since having read Iron Gold and Dark Age. And there's so many characters and things that like because I've read Dark Age, I just like paid so much more attention to now, and it like hit so different.
Nice. I look forward to hearing what those are when we get to those books. I'm looking forward to reading them because I think I might like them more this time. We'll find out.
I already know I will.
Well, Alex and I will convince you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but it should at least be interesting.
People think I don't like Dark Age because of my review of it. I reviewed it right after I read it, and I was so exhausted by it because it's so exhausting. Dark and like terrible.
A really long dark slog.
And Pierce really loves describing just like viscera in that book that I was just like, this is so exhausting. like when the horse trample scene, I was just like, why are we explaining all of this?
Anyone who has this like he's telling not showing complaint, don't worry, he shows you a lot more.
But just a friendly reminder, he chucked the draft of book 6 because it was too dark.
It was too dark.
I'm like, sir.
He was writing Elden Ring. That's what happened.
The Lightbringer was too dark, and he had to get rid of half of it.
I'm just like, I've read Dark Age, so like, what was in that book that was too dark?
Who knows? He's a crazy person. But back to the point that we had made earlier about Severo, like he's crazy, but sometimes he's kind of right. And like they do the whole Iron Rain, which of course is awesome, and then they get stuck in mud and like everyone's getting murdered. And then Darrow, just being dumb and headstrong, was like, "Nah, I'm just gonna leap over the wall and go like solo these people." And Severo, literally, like as he's like mid jump, Severo's like, "Darrow, no!" He lands on the ground and like strikes his like blade pose, and then jumps on the ship. And then everyone's just
that scene was Darrow being Finn Severo being Finn and Darrow being Rey, and he's just like, Rey. He's like, nope.
Darrow lands on the ship, and literally the Sovereign's just like, oh my god, Darrow's here. This is perfect. Thanks.
But I love too that like even in that scene, if you know that Fitchner is Ares, you can see how Fitchner is like, God damn it, like I had it. This is not the plan. What do I do now? You could
tell Darrow the plan and like he can help, but like that's another thing. Fitchner, there were ways for Fitchner to bring Darrow in before this point, and he chose not to, and that's fine. But that's why this happened.
But like even in Darrow's brain though, they're just like, what are you gonna do? Like you're alone, you're half dead.
I have a grenade.
I have a grenade.
They're like, no, you don't.
They're like, flip the shit.
Oh, I did not think of that. Oh no.
He's like,
sometimes Darrow's like,
Darrow's like, I have a brilliant plan. Oh no, I don't. Oh no.
It's like we're overcorrecting the Gary Stu-ness sometimes. I'm just like, wait, you are actually smart, but what just happened?
Yeah.
He's just like very act first, think later a lot of the time.
Oh yeah.
He does believe in himself a lot, which I respect. Like he truly, and he has been proven this, that if he's in a tight spot, he'll find his way out of it. It hasn't not happened yet.
But there's also like this kind of kamikaze element to him where he's also like, and if I don't make it, great, I'm going to the Vale with EO. So
yeah,
guess we'll find out.
Because that was like him in the mud, right? He's like, okay, problem solve time. I can do this.
But then he like cuts his suit up and he's like, shit, water. Oh, idiot.
Yes.
Matt, you're gonna love Darrow in Iron Gold and Dark Age because he's a fumbling maniac.
That's why people don't like those books, because Darrow is
he's a lot more human.
Darrow makes some real bad mistakes in Iron Gold.
Yeah.
But that's I guess it is kind of like how he counters just being good at everything, because he is good at everything, but he does not have the best planning skills, because there are so many
That's why he
times
has
like,
Mustang. Him and
Exactly.
Mustang are a power couple.
Except she's not there half the time, and then he does.
Well, it's because he keeps pushing Mustang away because he's also a superhero character, and a superhero character can never be with the girl next door.
Yeah.
It has to keep secrets.
Sometimes. Darrow,
But he's
do you guys
also-
watch the?
Yeah.
Do you guys watch the How It Should Have Ended videos
Yes.
on YouTube?
Sometimes,
When like
yeah.
the cartoon Superman and cartoon Batman. Sometimes Darrow is cartoon Batman, where he's just like, because I can, because I can.
Because I'm Batman.
You're like, what? Why are we doing this? Because okay.
Well, kind of bringing it back to someone had a question way earlier, like, do we think that he did an appropriate reveal to Mustang? And like, obviously, it didn't go how he wanted it to, and he even thinks
Even Darrow, the moment that he does it, he's like,
Yeah.
that was the coward's way out.
he literally walks the reader through. He's like, this is what I thought was going to happen, and I'm a moron, because why would that ever happen? He thought you would just walk down in here and be like, Darrow's family, hi everyone, let's have dinner. And he's like, what idiot?
I feel like the moment he walks through the door and leaves her with the thing, he's just like, nope, should not have done that. I've made
And then
a huge
Severo's like, do you
mistake.
kill her? What do we do? Do I stop her? Right. The best
And
part
Darrow
about
is
that
literally
moment-
like ghosting their messages because he's like, they're gonna want me to say to stop her, and if I don't see the message, I don't have to say.
But he's also like, if I don't respond, they'll do things on their own. Like, he's at a real impasse.
But then Ragnar's there, and he's like, you have 10 seconds to decide, or I murder you.
And his voice is like,
please
Darrow's
don't.
like, no.
And he's just sitting there like 9, 8, 7. It's like, oh my god, he's just gonna murder Mustang.
When like Mustang being a little bit racist about Obsidian's there, she's like, he's designed to kill. That's all he's gonna do. You're like, Mustang, come on, you're better than this.
But I also,
Go with
I
bold.
like how Mustang responds to the reveal, even if Darrow was really dumb about doing the reveal, because I think if she had just walked through the door to meet Darrow's mom, that's just like too over the top for me. Like, the way she's
What if
raised, I
she
just
walked
can't
in
see
and just
that.
shot her in the face?
I don't think she would have done that either.
Of course not, but it would have been
But you know,
different.
subverting your expectations.
Where it's like this whole time it's been playing the long game where like you think Adrius is the crazy twin, but it turns out
actually
the one that's the
Virginia
real
all time.
psycho is Mustang.
That would've been
I mean,
great.
she is by gold standards. She's like, what, a reformist and all of that? Like, no one believes that makes sense.
Which I kind of love too, but like about Adrius, how like Darrow keeps like trying to convince us himself, Adrius, when he's like, you worked so hard to save Quinn, and you saved Mustang, and like you might not be such a bad guy after all. And Adrius is like, totes. You're like, no,
That's the way
he's,
the world works.
he's
Although
a psycho.
it is implied, I mean, we should not trust Adrius, but it is implied
Of
at
course
the
not.
end of this book that he only did this because Darrow tried to be sneaky to save Harmony and Evie and Dancer.
I mean, it's not
Like,
That's how he.
funny.
That's how he figured it out. That's how he
Yeah.
figured out that Darrow is a red.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, that's why he started to, like, I think at that point he wasn't going to portray Darrow specifically. I mean, he didn't know Darrow was a red either, but it was like,
Adrius
there was
doesn't
nothing
give a
to
shit about
betray.
that. Adrius just wanted to kill Nero because he had daddy issues. Because
so many.
the whole end of it, he was just like, I was never good enough for you. And he's just like, that's why I had your other son killed. He's like, what? It's like, you had him killed? He's like, yeah, because you're a dick and you didn't think I was good enough because you literally left me to die as a baby. So
I
am
was
I
just
good
thinking
enough now,
today-
Dad? And he's just like, you're not my son. He's like, all right.
The Gens Augustus is like if the Lannisters, but like Cersei and Jaime were reversed, where like
Yeah.
Jaime's the psycho and Cersei is the normal one. And they're lions. Hic sunt leonis. Lannisters are
I mean,
lions.
there's some clear parallels here. Like, come on. Tyrion.
I mean, this was written, published in what, 2016? So
very clear parallels here, ladies and gentlemen. Everything
I just never thought of
it's a
that
song of
before.
ice and fire in space. Everything is a song of ice and fire.
It's the new Game of Thrones.
Exactly.
Sorry.
It's Game of Thrones told in first person.
Oh God.
But Severo with his eyeball obsession.
It's just also the fact that we're comparing it so much to the level of drama we experience in A Song of Ice and Fire. It's like, yeah, so it should be a TV show because it would.
But also, I mean, yeah, Alex was the one that said the end of Golden Sun is like giving Red Wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, 100%. Like, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, multiple times. But like that whole thing is like, because after you end with, and there's probably stuff we can go back to that we skipped, but like, you get past the conversation with Mustang and Darrow where it literally just fades to black. Like the conversation never ends. It's just like hard cut into the next scene and they're doing the parade.
Well, he's still alive, so she didn't shoot him.
And then of course immediately he's just like, Virginia's here. We don't know where she's at. Finkston's not here. Where is he at? And like you're walking into this place and everything seems happy. And it's just like, you start to get that feeling and you're just like, something feels a little off. And then like the waiters are being kind of weird. And he's just like, did I recognize somebody? And it's just like, oh, fuck. And it's just like everything comes collapsing. And yeah, his whole plan just comes crumbling down because the Jackal's a psychopath and playing this thing the whole time of betraying everybody. Of course he did, because he's the Jackal. But that scene is just like...
The Jackal never ceases to be chilling as a villain. I think he's so well written.
No, he's so well written. And because I think it's fun to write characters like that. Like, I don't know shit about writing, but it seems like that would be a fun character to get in the mind of.
I think Pierce Brown has said that Adrius is his favorite character.
Yeah. Well, and also it's fun to tease like us as readers because like we know we should not trust Adrius. Everyone knows, but it's also like, but I would love him to be redeemable, but it's not happening.
It's like all the moments when like him and Darrow are talking cordially and planning together, and he's trying to save Quinn, and Darrow's like, "You're not such a bad guy." You're like, "Is this his Loki moment? Is he joining the Avengers?" And then you're like, "Oh, he's definitely not. Oh, that was an act. He's
yeah." And it's like, but you want it. Like we all are a sucker for a good redemption arc, and you know,
yeah.
It's like I've been rewatching Smallville, and they make Lex Luthor so likable, and it's like, but I know you're Lex Luthor. Like I know where this goes.
Yeah,
like,
you can't fool me, Lex. Yeah, I mean, of course, the tipping point in that scene too, though, is when Nero finally is just like, "I want you to be my son, Darrow." He's like, "You have a son." He's like, "Fuck him. I want you to be my son."
And then he's like, "It's actually," but like the moment that he says this was actually Adrius's idea, you're like, "Oh God."
Everything in that scene leading up to it's like, oh, where's this person? Lauren being like, I almost couldn't make it in. It's like all of your friends were almost not at this event.
Yeah.
No, but like Nero saying you can be my son, and you're like, okay, that's fine. But then he's like, actually, it's not just that Adrius approves of this. It was his idea. Then you're like, oh no.
And then they make a mention of like Lauren's over there with his family. I'm like, Wyatt, okay, so now he has to die in front of his family now. And then when
Lauren was like, I was supposed to put the thing on you, but then Roke asked, and then it's like, oh no.
Well, it's like the last time somebody volunteered for something that they weren't assigned to do was Tactus and Lysander. And you're like, well, this didn't go well last time.
Well, and like, and you always have this entire book, we've had these uncomfortable feelings with Roke and Darrow. It's like things are not okay, and nothing else at this party feels okay. And it's just all uncomfortable.
But also, I think Adrius is a good counterpoint to Tactus, where like Tactus is a monster, but you get the sense that he's a monster that was made to be that way by circumstance, and he wouldn't necessarily have been that way. Adrius, yes, some circumstances he points to, but you're like, I don't think there's a world in which some other nurturing environment would have made Adrius a kind person. Like, yes, he's bitter about things that were done to him, and he's right to be bitter about some of those things.
To be fair, his dad literally tried to kill him as a baby.
That's what I'm saying, but not everyone who has that has
die.
But I don't think if Darrow had been left out to die as a baby that he would have become Adrius, you know?
There was probably a way to channel Adrius's personality issues into a necessary, like, controlled evil for good sort of thing, and not him just, like, revenge mode.
I mean,
in this society, I don't think so.
But
maybe he was born a red. I don't know. He could have died with some pit vipers. I have no clue.
To a much lesser extent, though, it's Tyrion, right? Like, Tyrion is a dwarf. They consider him a demon. His family hates him and have always hated him. They wanted him to die, and nothing he does is ever good enough because of who he is. And it's the same way with Adrius, because he even says, like, his older brother is who Nero loved, and nothing that Adrius ever did was ever going to be good enough. Granted, no, that doesn't mean turn into a sociopath that eats people during the Institute and then just like kills people for fun. But like, you understand, Like, he's like, fine, if nothing I do impresses you being a normal person, then I'm just going to be fucking crazy and then get your affection that way. Like, and if you still reject me, then I'm literally just going to kill you. So, which he does, because he's insane.
But no, Virginia Mustang is always right. At least that's what I choose to believe.
I mean, but I was going to say, like, even then, like, it would get a bit old if Mustang was literally always right. So, like, she's really smart, and she is right more often than she's wrong, but, like, she's not always right.
That's true.
No.
I mean, well, and that's why I liked the scene where she doesn't perfectly respond to Darrow's reveal. She wasn't, like, automatically like, oh, I understand why you were so distant now, and I'm totally going to take this very calmly.
And we have confirmed 2 instances of Mustang being much too naive. She does a Darrow twice, where, like, when she comes into the Sovereign's room and she really believed that the Sovereign wouldn't kill her family, and that's when she realizes that she actually would have, and, like, but she had been willing to believe that she wouldn't, which is kind of naive of her. Yeah. And then when she genuinely believes that her father is, like, considering, like, aligning himself with reformers, and you're like, oh, Virginia, you know he will.
Oh, those, like, that, like, whole scene where her, the Sovereign and Darrow were exchanging truths, that was so Dune. It was wild.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
100% Dune.
It was like, oh, wow.
And we've got little baby 100%. Paul on deck, ready to step in.
I mean, it was even to the point where there's, like, here's the thing that's going to kill you if you lie. It's like, oh, okay, so this is the box. Cool. Like, we're just doing the Betty Jesuit thing. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, wear your influences on your sleeve. It's cool. I'm cool with it.
It's not even as obvious as it is in Dark Age. Dark Age is way more like, oh this is literally Dune.
Yes, on Venus.
Yeah,
it's fine. I'm cool with it. I love Dune and Red Rising, so.
And I also love it because Pierce Brown doesn't.
I mean,
and Pierce Brown doesn't try to hide it. Like, he doesn't be like, oh, I was inspired by that. He's like, I straight ripped that out of Dune. Like,
I think
100%.
I think I like that scene enough that I'm totally cool with it. It's when it's used and it takes me out of the story that I get annoyed. Like with Empire of Silence, you know, we have the whole line in Dune, fear is the mind killer. And they, like, have fear is the poison, fear is the blank. I'm like, oh my God, I don't care about this part of Dune.
We do have that in Dark Age.
We are literally
I know, but,
talking
like,
about
by that point, I care about characters and stuff. It's not like the first 50 pages of a new book series.
Yeah. He does not hide that shit in Dark Age whatsoever.
Dark Age.
I honestly forget exactly what the line is, but I know that.
Oh, I remember.
I don't. What was
in Dark Age?
Yeah.
Is it a spoiler line? I doubt it is.
It's fear is the torrent.
Okay. Yeah. But also just like where he is and like what's happening is just like, all right, this is very Dune.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you, Matt. If you're borrowing and it's fun and it lands, I'm cool. If you're borrowing and I'm jarred and I'm annoyed, I'm less cool.
Definitely.
And if you're putting your own interesting spin on it too, then, like, it's interesting as opposed to straight copying something and hoping no one will notice.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've talked about a lot of parallels between this and A Song of Ice and Fire and Dune, but, like, in no way would I think of Red Rising as a ripoff or a fan fiction of either of those things.
No, it's a ripoff of Hunger Games and Game of Thrones.
Of course. It's Hunger Games and Game of Thrones in space, obviously. But anyways, I mean, that whole scene, though, so you get Roke basically putting the ring on Darrow and poisoning him, so Darrow just gets to, like, be paralyzed and watching all this happen. Victor gets shot. Her mom gets killed. Lauren gets, like, starting to be beheaded by Lilith. She, like, cuts off a bunch of his fingers, and then the jackal just, like, fucking Atreus is just,
like, puts glass in his belly and,
he, like, looks like this, and then he, like, stabs him. He's like, you're not made of stone. Weird. Just, like, garrotes him. And then it's like, and then Lilith finishes the job, so she, like, cuts Lauren's head off, and then, like, Victor crawls over to Darrow and was like, I didn't know, I swear. And then, of course, like, fucking Cassius shows up. And he's just like, you murdered my entire family. And Darrow's like, what?
I did not.
And that's like, what happened in the background?
Because, you know,
well, I don't remember.
You can guess.
Yeah, I can guess.
I mean, it's obvious.
I mean,
right?
and any reader at that point is like, if Cassius is saying this happened, we didn't see it. Darrow's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And you know that all these people are doing all this betraying around you. You're like, what's going on? Even more has happened than what we're seeing right now.
It's like, what have you done, Atreus? What have you done?
Everything.
Where is Mustang?
Well, Mustang's mad at Darrow. That's because even Atreus was like, Mustang's not here. It's a bummer. Kind of wish she was here.
I love that no one questions that they would have had a lover's spat. They're like, that checks out. That's why she's not here.
Like, yeah, that makes sense. And of course, what we already knew, but like the slow, like Roke, Darrow's still like by the end of it, like everyone around him was like getting murdered or whatever. Nero's getting shot in the head, and he's just like, and then Roke turns the box around because Roke just being a cocky asshole is just like, we could never be, because he's like Roke brother, which like again when he's just like mumbling like brother. That just kind of reminded me of Red Wedding when Rob's just like mother and then dies. Like, it's the same shit. And then he turns the box around. He's just like, I'm gold. Like, you're garbage. You're nothing to me. Like, we could have never been brothers. And then turns the box around. And it's just Finchner, when they went way overboard, like cut his eyes out, put grapes in his mouth. Like, come on.
Which was, I mean, it was an echo of what Nero had done to the Bologna wife. So.
Yeah. They're all crazy.
Yeah, Pierce Brown is a big fan of Star Wars, so that was 100% a reference to Star Wars.
Yeah, for sure.
You can definitely tell he's a fan of Star Wars.
Yeah. Wait, is it in Morningstar that he says bye, Felicia?
Yes.
Not that that's from Star Wars, but then he like...
I laughed out loud when I read that. I was like, are you kidding me? He put that in this book?
Yes,
that's funny.
You can just also having fun. Roke's joke about the banana stand, and no one thinks it's funny except Daxo, and Daxo is like squealing, laughing.
I love that scene though. Those are the scenes I live for.
It's because the telemonases are always a treasure. I am never mad to be reading a scene if the telemonases are in it.
Everybody else is just like, really, dude? That's the joke? And then
I love that Daxo isn't just laughing. He's not just laughing, but it's like this weirdly like squealing laughter where it's like this noise that comes out of him. They're like, I think Daxo is laughing.
It's great.
Oh, it's so good. And like, I love that conversation between Kravix, Daxo, and Darrow, where they're like, we understand that you're like aligning with him out of necessity, but we got you anytime you need us. And he's like, well, I need you immediately. And they're like, okay, well, do let us know. He's like, maybe, like, I think he says my daughters will help. And he's like, they're too far away. He's like, I guess we'll have to help. They're so adorable.
They're so good. Just the telemonases, just thinking about like how they just react to things.
Oh, also in that meeting when Victra's holding Sophocles and Severo takes Sophocles away from Victra because they're like, we can't trust Victra. Gotta protect Sophocles.
That's good.
Severo's in love. He just doesn't want to admit it yet.
I'm glad that like we don't play around with the whole like Victra has a crush on Darrow for too long this book. Like it's there, but I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, we did it a lot, but I mean, I never thought she was in love with him. I just always thought she wanted a ride.
I said crush.
She wanted to make his banana stand. Yeah, she wanted.
I she thought Darrow was attractive and like a person that she admired, and like I don't think she loved him. I think she was attracted.
Well, she does love him as a friend.
Yeah.
She definitely wanted.
And also thinks he's hot and would bang.
Yeah, like I think she's not wrong that if they had actually had sex at the academy, they would have had a fun time. Like I don't think that's wrong.
I think that it's wrong because Darrow is way too serious to have a fun time. Even when he's with Virginia, he's like, I guess I'll allow myself this bit of happiness. And you're like, oh my God.
Melodrama on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
But that's Darrow.
And he's like only letting himself he's like only letting himself enjoy Virginia because he was on the cusp of death a minute ago. And he's like, well, I thought I would never have this again. So I guess I'll allow myself.
Even when he's talking to his mom, he's like, is it possible for someone to love two people? Just like
she's like, I just told you that your brother remarried. So like, right? Yes.
That was also funny when he talks to his mom and she's just like, men, you're all so stupid. Like, of course, like she's way more knowledgeable about everything. He's just like, oh, yeah, I guess I'm not dumb.
It's really like talking to Virginia. You can see why he's into Virginia because she's like his mom.
Yeah.
Which Virginia is actually inspired by Pierce Brown's mom, so.
You know way more about his personal life than I do, so.
Yeah, I was about to say, I have we just learned I only learned what Pierce Brown looked like last episode of this. Like, I didn't even know. I think I had him confused. I didn't have him confused with Dan Brown, but I thought he looked like Dan Brown just because of the Brown name overlap, which is very wrong.
Yeah.
I don't look up author pictures often, and his picture I had the
the
ebooks.
back
I
of
didn't have
the
it.
book.
I had the ebook. What was I
I
going
think
to
his
do?
picture might even be on the ebook.
Well, yes, I'm not.
Anyway.
Does anyone actually go to the back of the ebook
I
ever
do.
by choice?
I never do.
I mean, like when I finish the book, I just keep pressing until it gets to the end, so it can.
You can
be,
also
like,
just click the
done.
3 dots and say end book, and then it says read, and you don't have to do that.
Well, I don't. I'm telling you what I do. That's not that.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't think about it too much.
I mean, I think I don't think that Darrow is not a self-insert, but I also don't actually think Darrow is a self-insert because having heard Pierce Brown talk about these books a lot, I mean, every character is like a fractional part of an author's psyche. He is all of the characters, but I feel like he doesn't really see himself as Darrow or even would want to see himself as Darrow. Like there's other characters he identifies with more, and Darrow is just like the vehicle through which to tell this story.
Yeah. I also think if anything more to be like a self-insert for the average reader. Like it's supposed to be like you can be the hero of this story, be Darrow. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, and if there's any point at which Pierce Brown does identify with Darrow, I think it would be in Iron, Gold, and Dark Age.
Yeah.
Not in the first 3.
Fair. Yeah, so we're left obviously on a giant cliffhanger, which if you were reading this when they were published, that would have sucked. Luckily.
Yeah, I had the right.
Well, but also as to Angela's saying how the first and the third work better than this one. This is the only one that ends on a darker note than it starts. The first and the third have an upward resolution.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, because the first one he ends kind of triumphant in the Institute, and then this one is a super downer. In the beginning of Morningstar.
Well, that Golden Sun is Empire. Golden Sun is Empire Strikes Back. Our characters are at rock bottom.
They're lowest, yeah.
Yeah.
The freaking beginning of Morningstar is. I just remember.
It's a lot.
It's so tough, man. It's tough.
I'm excited to pick it up, but also kind of dreading it. I might pick it up next week. I haven't decided yet.
Probably gonna start it tomorrow, to be honest.
Well, I need to finish.
I kind of wanted to start it immediately.
I just have a book I'm reading that I don't love, but I don't hate, but I need to finish it for a video project. So,
been there.
It's one
and
that you don't
are Matt, there are multiple perspectives in the new books, so
yeah,
there's that.
That's
why
that's
so
the biggest. It's the biggest jarring difference is there's a little bit of a time skip between Morningstar and Iron Gold, and then you have
quite a bit.
It's a huge time difference.
It's 10 years. It's not that much.
It's because you're used to reading Sun Eater that doesn't feel like a lot to you, but 10 years is quite a bit.
That's because Sun Eater's it's 10 been years ago. What did your life
look like, Alex? It was very different.
Listen, when you go from Empire of Silence to Howling Dark, it's been 78 years, and then to Demon and White, it's been 400 years, and you're just what? The hell?
Okay, I'm okay with tapping out where I did. No, that's too much for me.
Yeah, so I mean, you
so Alex picking up Iron Gold, he's 10 years. Pfft, that's nothing.
It's not because even
you're following the next generation of people, and our other characters are still around. There's another generation.
It's not that long. What's it called? John Gwynn's next series in Faith on the Fallen is 100 years. It's not it's a sequel in the sense that it's the same world, but the Banished Lands 100 years later, that's a long time. 10 years is not that much. Just saying.
A lot could happen in 10 years.
Dude, 10 years ago.
Happened in 10 years.
What was 2013? I'm an undergrad at Ohio State. That was eons ago. Also, my cat shut up.
Anyway.
Here's my topic, please.
Iron Gold is multi-POV. And the reason that I still liked it, but I didn't love it the first time around, simply because
you're wrong.
Yes. I did not love 2 of those POVs that entire time.
You're wrong.
God, there's a lot of POVs. I forgot.
There's only 4 in Iron Gold, but there's more than 4
5
in Dark Age.
Is there 6?
There's more than 5. Well, because there's still the main 4, but there's lots of one-offs where they only get a few chapters.
I think the other reason why 10 years feels like a lot is that we are looking at a world dealing with the repercussions of the end of Morningstar, and it's not 10 years within a world that has been stagnant. We are dynamically changing in those 10 years.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, so yeah, everyone's obviously older. I don't remember, like, at the end of Morningstar, I don't remember how old they are. I don't think it's that much later than Golden Sun, right?
I think it's like a year or two
Maybe
at
a couple of
most. It
years.
depends.
Yeah.
They're similar in age, especially because at one point we know how much time has passed because of a
Also, because like
contract.
if Iron Gold is 10 years later, Darrow is early 30s, so early 20s is where Morningstar has to end.
Oh, thanks, Liana.
That's math.
That was
Coming
good
in here
math.
with logic and basic math.
Quick maths.
I will be your Virginia tonight.
Wait, does that mean I'm Darrow in the Darrow Severo Virginia triangle?
I mean, we already know I'm Severo, so whatever you guys want to fight amongst yourself.
I don't have a horse in this race. I don't care.
Wow.
Mustang is a horse in this race.
Mustang's cool and all. I don't think I want to be anyone in these books. Like, I'm not anyone in these books.
I don't know. I mean, like, I wouldn't say no to having some of the physical and mental abilities of these people, but I wouldn't want to live in this world.
Yeah.
Yes, very true. I would not.
Like, having the, like, physical agility and, like, health and long life of, like, Virginia, like, yes, sign me up any day. I don't know I'd want to be, like, 10 feet tall in our society, but...
Yeah.
Think about how good at sports you'd be.
I also, so speaking of a character I really like, because I was trying to think what color I'd be, and I'd probably be thrown into green or blue. But the blue that takes over Pax, I love her, and I love her every time. Yeah. And I love how Darrow, how she gets chosen to be the captain. I just love that scene a lot.
What are
and all the other blues trying to shit talk, but they don't know how to shit talk, so they just are like, he doesn't even know the equation for the blah blah blah, and you're like, it's like Big Bang Theory.
I just like, I really enjoy it.
What are greens in this world? I legit.
They're like computer people. Like, they're not
I thought that was blue.
No, blue's the ship. They control the they interface
I know
with
they're pilots, but
yeah, I think I'm basing this off the card game. In the card game, greens are always the programmer coding people.
Whatever. What is this?
I play the card game a lot more than I read the books. So
I like on the wiki is golds, rulers of the society. Yeah, you get it.
Correct.
Role of greens in Red Rising.
Programmers and techs. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I said I only know this because the card game, that's literally all their powers are like that, and that's like their names and stuff like that.
I think, doesn't it say in the beginning of the book what they all
Again, I skipped a chapter
Yes,
prologue.
in Golden Sun,
I mean,
in Golden Sun it
shows,
has the thing.
There's a chart.
Yeah.
So yeah, blues are pilots and astronavigators.
So blues are primarily the engineers who interface with the computers for the ships.
Yeah.
And then the oranges are like the actual engineers.
The dictionary definition of an obsidian is a monstrous race bred for war. You're like, okay, it's really extra.
A thing I also liked in this book is when they go to visit his hometown, and he's like visiting all of his old villains, right, and stuff like that, and the Greys and everything. How Mustang points out his extra hatred for Greys and like his own like prejudice there that he hasn't like unpacked. I enjoy that.
Well, in general, I love the whole bit of him like seeing his past and being like, this is all so small and so pathetic and so petty and so ugly, and none of this is how it is in my memory. I think that's all done
also
really well, because like so much of Darrow is like
a
story of his life.
Yeah. Also, why are yellows always the healing color?
What do you mean?
They have yellow Aja and Wheel of Time too. They heal.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, in what other universe are people segregated by color and yellow is the
Wheel of Time?
What is happening?
I usually see white as like priest kind of colors in.
Well, they're like the justices in this world.
Yeah.
And silvers are the monies, and coppers are the bureaucrats. Like I said, I only know this because of the card game.
Reds are the Irish.
I keep in my head.
Reds are canonically the Irish.
Yeah, they even mentioned it in the end of this one. I actually caught it this time when they actually talk about how where they came from and stuff.
They literally took them from Ireland.
Oh.
And then Darrow's mom was like, "Your accent is weird." Yeah, I guess I don't talk like that anymore, do I?
Yep. But no, sorry, my cat's being really cute. So.
How dare you pet your cat on stream?
He's just really adorable today. Mainly because my partner's not home, so I'm the only one he can love.
Morningstar is also great, though. I'm excited to reread it. I did not expect the beginning of that based on the ending of this book. When that book started, I was like, oh my God, this is tough.
Yeah.
And then it turns back into like action mode. Pierce Brown, all gas, no brakes. Let's go.
I think I'll be less frustrated because more people know Darrow's secret now. And so we aren't dealing with that as a plot point as much in my memory going forward.
That's true.
Well, also, it's just that like the bromance of Severo and Darrow can truly like blossom because there's nothing between them. I mean, nothing like keeping. Yeah, there's lots.
We're not
between
trying
them.
to
There's
infiltrate
nothing.
society anymore. Cat's out of the bag. We're doing other things.
Yeah.
He's been outed.
Do we meet beige colors? No. Closest is copper. Or orange,
browns. There are browns.
Oh, yeah. Brown are just the janitors. They just like clean shit.
Literally.
Like, but are there actually? So someone brought up green being green thumbs. Do we actually have agricultural things at all? Who's making the food?
Greens,
they make them in a lab.
I'm just saying.
I feel like a lot of the other colors had to be there to like flesh out the world, but they're not like part of the story. They're just there.
Because like I know red gets the mining resources, which I actually do like.
Well, I mean, the yellows are also scientists. They're not just healers. So like,
yeah. But I do like the focus of a rebellion coming from a group of people who've been taken advantage of in the mines, because like in our own history on Earth, that happens over and over and over and over again. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. It was also kind of sad in that conversation with Dara's mom when he's like telling her everything. She's just like, and then what? It's like, so what? We're just going to go to the surface and like live a different life. Like most of us are just going to stay in the mines and be miners because that's all we know. And he's just
and that's what's so sad is like most of them actually don't hate mining, even if it shortens their lifespan. Like that's not their gripe. Their gripe is they don't have food. They don't have like the resources to just not.
Which like the litany of like recommended strategies to deal with miners that guy's like, I tried this and I tried this and I tried this and I tried this, and you're like, oh my God, those are horrible things.
And then
he's like dousing them with pheromones, and now they're populating like bunnies. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude.
And then when we learn that in the actual plan is they are supposed to have enough food, like yes, they might sometimes do some of the, restricting food.
Like if they've been acting out, then they like restrict the food. Yeah.
But like the actual like starving of these people is just because they're skimming money off the top and corruption. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
No one predicted corruption. Who saw that coming?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do like the idea of the what now, and I like that idea more now as a reader than I did 5 years ago when I read this, so I think I'll like Iron Gold more. We'll see.
Iron Gold, yeah. Yeah, I just think Iron Gold is a much more interesting project than Red. Red Rising is a ton of fun, and like it is original in many ways, but it's like, okay, like we fight our way to the top and we like overcome the evil baddies. Like it's like, it's fun and it's done well. But like Iron Gold is just such a more fascinating project, so much harder to write, so much harder to read. And he's obviously like grown a lot as a writer, so like he's stretching his wings more, and I just feel like it's just so much more impressive.
Yeah. I mean, like I talked about in the last stream, I think for me, I was unprepared for it to not be paced the same way, right? Like it's just not paced the same way. It's not the same project in terms of even storytelling. It's just like, it was just so jarring. And I was reading it being like, I was expecting it to be plot twist on plot twist on plot twist, and there's still plot twists, but it's not the same.
Well, also, and because like we're not limited to Darrow, then not only do we get other like personalities around, but we also get different eyes on different parts of the world that like we never would have had a reason to see, because Darrow doesn't have a reason to be there. So like having these different characters from different parts of the society and the world helps a lot.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think that's why it was good and bad to switch to multi-POV, because obviously if you want to grow the story in the world and actually see the impact of like what happens at the conclusion of Morningstar, you kind of need it to expand, and you can't just have Darrow go everywhere unless you do what Sun Eater does, where they have basically time travel or like cryo sleep, because then you can just throw him wherever. It's like, 100 years went by.
But even then, like, again, like Hadrian would never be like in the factory, in the mine. Like he's never going to see those parts of the world. And so like like the characters that are in Iron Gold and Dark Age are like from different parts of the world that Darrow would never, even if he had time to go there, he just wouldn't have a reason to go there.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, also Matt, it's not a trilogy. It's going to be 4 books for the second one.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think the third one that comes out is the end. I fully expect a cliffhanger.
It was originally going to be a trilogy.
And
It
then
got
he
big.
did the whole, oops, I wrote too many pages.
Oops, he did it.
And then they were too dark, so I wrote more pages that were too many.
Pretty much.
And I guess we'll find out if that makes sense. Grimdark. I don't know what Grimdark means, so don't ask me.
But yeah, I mean, Dark Age,
So-
like, I don't think there's a debate. It's like one of the darkest books I've ever read.
Yeah, I mean, Dark Age is incredibly dark and dreary and violent and can get pretty
Visceral.
depressing. It's also way longer because it's multi-POV and the scope is a lot larger. Dark Age is, like 2.5 times longer than any of these books probably, right?
It's
hardback's
almost
like
1,000
700 pages or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it gets to be a lot for sure.
I will say though, like because I think some people define Grimdark as like all of the characters are morally questionable and you can't root for anyone. And although that does exist in Iron Gold and Dark Age, there are actually like characters who you are rooting for, and it's not really.
Well, but I actually think that's why a lot of people don't like the books, because by that definition of Grimdark, it is, and people don't like that.
Yeah.
They want to be able to root for Darrow, and you can't comfortably root for Darrow anymore.
I mean, you can because he's still like the main character, but that he's
going to do some stuff.
Not gonna spoil anything. There's
some
no one in
That's
this
what I'm
world.
saying. It leans more toward Grimdark,
Yes, it
where
does.
like
100%.
Darrow isn't just
I mean,
this like protagonist that you safely root
No.
for.
But I mean, even by this point, like just to get into the Institute, they all had to murder someone. So like no one's hands are clean.
But it's
in this
still written in
entire
a way where
series.
you're like, but it's still written in a way where like Darrow had to. Darrow's
Sure.
been forced to. Darrow regrets it all so much. You're like, we still root for good Darrow. Whereas like,
I totally get it, but I'm saying like
Sorry.
in this entire world, pretty much no one's hands are clean. Everyone's got some kind of blood on their hands, and then some more than others, and some are definitely not necessary. and there's ramifications for that for sure. So they're all great though. I'm excited to reread them, and the fact that we're getting a new one this year is awesome. I just hope that whatever the actual final book is doesn't take forever, because that would be sad.
it'll take forever though.
Stop
I mean,
I
it's
just
been
know
a
that if my
pretty long
predictions
time before
don't-
this one.
If my predictions don't come true in Lightbringer, they still can come true
Leanna,
in Red God.
Stop it, because you're just gonna. taunt
Alex
me
is
with
very
that
excited
until
for
it
me to be
happens.
right.
I'm
Because there's a good
terrified.
chance that you are right, and I don't like it. So shut it.
Don't hate me because I'm right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, we have
Do
to
we have
think
anything
of
left
the
for this
giveaway
one?
question.
Oh,
And
yeah.
also the winner.
Yeah. So how do we want to do that?
There's only 6 people that entered, guys. You don't like the mugs and the pins? Come on. Enter this giveaway. Anyway, so the 6 people that entered. Do you guys want to pick a number between 1 and 6?
Sure, I have mine.
7.
3.
Alex
5.
disqualified himself. Angela actually followed the rules. So you said 3, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, don't know how to say that username, but
You can
it's
type it in the
G-
comments.
Oh, I could.
No, I
Can
want to
I?
say it.
That's so hard. It's Gia.chi with 2 eyes.
Was that a question?
Well, it's kind of, is that how you say it? So it's GIA.CHII is the winner.
Woo! I want the mug. Well, actually, I don't want the mug because I don't use mugs, but I think they're very pretty. They're really nice.
But you can put it on a shelf next to books.
Where? What?
Indeed. And you put bookmarks
I
in
don't
it.
know. Put it on top of Simba's head behind you.
No, I already have other things. But no, this is Simba and Nala, first of all. It's both of them.
Well, I'm sorry.
But yeah,
I didn't know
so
that
we
Nala
have
was part of that pillow.
But we have another giveaway with another mug and another pin, different from the first one. If you want to see pictures of them, I posted it in my community tab. I tagged you guys. I don't know if you shared it. So like, if you want to see what the giveaway is for this,
I don't think I shared
there's
that.
pictures
But
of it.
go see Leanna's channel. She has more subscribers than me, so you probably already follow her.
Well, there's pictures in the community tab of the mug and the pin. So if you're interested in them, then enter. And you have until the Morningstar live chat to enter. And you don't have to be in the United States to enter. People thought you had to be in the United States. And Alex will very responsibly pin a comment with these details. Isn't that right, Arch Governor?
I have to do stuff?
Nieves?
You have to just pin a comment on your own video. That's all.
In fact, I'll write the comment and then you can pin it.
That's a lot of pressure.
Mufasa was fridged, and it's still to this day one of the most traumatic death scenes of my life, to the point where young Angela...
Lion King is just Hamlet.
Okay, well, Angela saw this when she was 3.
They had so much space to get out of the way of that trampoline.
I just want to say that you should say that Hamlet's father was fridged. He's the original fridge.
Fine. But
you know who actually was fridged is Ophelia.
Yeah.
Leanna, no one cares.
Unlike Nala.
You want this you want this mug, right? So you need to answer what's the question again?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We haven't come up with a question. Who did Angela unforgivably forget about?
That's true. That's true. Here we go. That's perfect.
Well, do we want to say that or make it easier and just say like what's the name of the animal? Because that's easier.
The question is, who did Angela unforgivably forget about? The answer is Sophocles. But the question is, who did she unforgivably forget about? Also, this isn't part of the giveaway, but it is from the same shop so that the items are from, and she designed the Sophocles pin. So if you, unlike Angela, remember Sophocles and want a Sophocles pin.
Also, I want it clear that I didn't forget about Sophocles during this chat. It was the previous chat.
I can't believe I mentioned Sophocles last chat, and you're like, who? I don't know. What? Unreal.
It happens.
Absolutely unreal.
Unfortunate.
And you have till our next live, which will be somewhere near the end of April on my channel, presumably.
The shop is Creative Lee Crafts. You can find her on Instagram. It's like the word creative and then Lee, Leigh, like her name, crafts. Like all.
And Leanna has tagged her on her Instagram if you follow her.
She makes really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
And she's a huge fan of Red Rising, so like half, if not more. Like legitimately half of her shop is just Red Rising stuff. She has more new Red Rising designs coming, like just constantly.
I honestly until today just thought she was a Red Rising like shop because that's all I ever see.
No, she also has some First Law designs now because I'm not doing First Law.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
I told her I can't wait for her the other 50% of her shop to just be First Law.
And I'm sure we'll plan this more behind the scenes, but I can't do the last weekend in April. I can do the 22nd, 23rd weekend. That's the
so one. Angela won't be there for the next chat. It'll just
on her channel. So
it'll be on her channel, but she won't be there.
We have 4 weeks to read a very fast book.
That chat just won't exist because it won't get hosted on StreamYard.
I'm going to Chicago for my bachelorette party that weekend.
Whatever.
I can't believe you think that's more important than Morningstar.
Seriously, unacceptable.
This is like the fate of the galaxy, the fate of the solar system, not galaxy. The fate of the solar system being decided in Morningstar.
I do like that we don't have like faster than light travel, that we are just like sequestered here.
Yeah.
And that we don't leave.
I like that tech-wise, you know. We have enough tech to like biomedically do anything we want, but we can't travel outside the solar system easily.
Yet.
Dun, dun, dun. Cool. Anything else?
I don't
know.
If we make it to 2 hours, we're going to get spammed by bots again, so we gotta...
Travax au telemanus! Daxo never does that, right?
That he hasn't yet. He's the smart one.
His own name.
Yes, he does it.
I don't think I've seen it.
Yes.
I don't think Daxo did it. He's the smart one. He's, you know.
Okay, he does.
Oh, in the next
book. Well, not in this book.
No, not in this book. There's at least one Telemanus in each book that yells his own name like a Pokemon. Okay.
Which is adorable.
Exactly.
Terrifying and adorable.
All right. I think we are done for the evening. Thanks everyone for joining. And you're in your chance to win some stuff if you remember the name of the fox that Angela unforgivably forgot.
You can also just put a fox emoji. We'll know what you mean. If you can't spell Sophocles today.
Changing the rules.
I am the sovereign.
Just like the sovereign. It's now a battle to the death. Whoever lives gets the Sophocles pin. And on that note, I'm going to stop the stream now. Good night, everyone.
Night.
and broadcast, not leave studio. That would have been
Please don't. Deshaun has done that to me.